All right, guys, we're back. I'm here with Marshana, Dahlia, Spavento. I'm George Mossey. This is part 2 of the 90 Day Fiancé podcast, episode 12. And we're talking about Jovi and Yara. So Jovi and Yara were on the show last night. And it started out with Yara still focusing on his drinking, which we've all seen throughout the season. She's worried about how he's going to be as a father if he's drunk every day, all day, even in the morning. So we're basically hearing how she's threatening him again to go back to the Ukraine. That's how it starts out. And that's been her empty threat throughout the season. Every time she's mad, she's like, okay, you know what? I'll just go back to the Ukraine. And at this point, Jovi's not having it because he's like, look, you're pregnant and you're obviously not trying to go back to the Ukraine because when you weren't pregnant, you were trying to come back here with me. So I kind of understand that because after a while, it gets irritating when somebody makes threats to you that you know are empty.
But this is why women and men, anybody, if you're in a relationship, never ever don't put the relationship on the line as a tactic, okay? Because then it won't work. It doesn't work anymore, you know? So if you keep using it as a tactic, as a means to threaten the other person, it loses any kind of weight and value. So she's been threatening this since day one, since the day she landed in New Orleans. Now, when it's like a real thing that you might be able to really use to reach your partner to be like, I am pregnant and I will go back and raise our child in the Ukraine, it no longer holds value because she's been running that game since day one. Like, again, I feel like a lot of people on this show, you know, put the relationship on the line for any little thing. That being said, I'm still Team Yara because she is pregnant and Jovi is a full-fledged frat boy and he does need to work on his drinking. Like this is, he has a terrible relationship with alcohol and that is affecting his relationship with Yara and could potentially affect the relationship that he has with his child. So I agree, like when she was crying and feeling it and saying like, why did I have to leave my nice life for this? I felt that she wasn't destitute or homeless in the Ukraine. She was living a good life. And maybe she thought, if I'm giving up life in the Ukraine, I'm coming here for something better. And now she's like, I don't feel like this is better. So I really empathize with Yara. I'm still Team Yara. Jovi needs to get it together.
All right. So let's talk about this conversation that Jovi and Yara had with Jovi's parents, Gwen and Monty. So Gwen's like, are you guys excited about being pregnant? Or are you feeling like this is a oh shit moment? And Jovi's like, well, I'm kind of like, oh shit. And I was like, that is such a typical frat boy way of dealing with it. So instead of being supportive of your pregnant wife, who's sitting next to you, by the way, who can hear exactly what you're saying, who you helped get pregnant. She didn't just land here pregnant from the UK or from the Ukraine. You're going to say, oh, well, I'm just like, oh, well, oh shit, that's a mistake. Obviously, Yara's pissed off now because she feels like her being pregnant is an inconvenience to him. And I felt like them asking them that as parents was really disrespectful. That's disrespectful to ask in front of her, making her feel belittled, making her feel like her current medical situation is putting a damper on their son's life.
Yeah, it was inconsiderate. And of course, I'm thinking the producers put them up to that question just to pull out of Jovi more of that frat boy personality. But everybody in the situation should know better, right? The parent should still know better than to ask, and Jovi should still know how to respond. So I really do feel for Yara because when you're pregnant, you're so vulnerable. You know what I mean? It's just so. I just had my son, 3 months ago. And it's just like at that time is where you need to be protecting and caring for and nurturing your soon to be wife. She's not a random that you got pregnant.
Exactly.
She's not a random. That's your whole fiance. So I really feel, I really do feel for Yara. So Team Yara all the way.
I'm Team Yara too now. I agree with you. All right, so let's talk about Brandon and Julia. So Brandon decides to go dress shopping with Julia, which I was completely blindsided and confused by because, first of all, the husband is not supposed to see the wife's dress before the day of the wedding. Second of all, husbands don't want to watch their wife try on 35 different dresses at a bridal shop. That's just not something that men, I don't know of any tradition where men of any family do that. So the fact that he did it made me painfully realize that Julia doesn't have any friends and she must be extremely lonely that the only person that she had to take dress shopping was Brandon.
Now listen, when Brandon kind of beat Betty back and was like, Betty, don't have an opinion, don't say nothing, like, stay quiet. Sometimes Betty does the most. But not to be funny, this was Betty's moment. This is where Betty was supposed to be. This was the one time Betty was supposed to have an opinion. Betty was supposed to be saying stuff because he's not giving her the feedback that she's looking for. But not to be funny, it's not what the husband does, right? Or the husband to be, or the fiance does. So I don't want to defend Brandon all the way, but he shouldn't have been there. But where he was wrong was by not allowing Betty to be that mother-in-law and be like, oh, I like this dress, and oh, I like the lace on that. You know, the details that a woman would notice. But shout out to Betty, though, because she followed the rules. She really didn't give her opinion. She was on her best behavior, which goes to show, Brandon, if you're watching, you do have the ability to rein your mother in rather than throwing Julia on under the bus all the time. It seems like Betty will follow your lead if you really do say to her, hey, watch it, not this. So it was good to see Brandon assert himself to Betty in some way, but this wasn't the time or place for it.
It really wasn't, because Julia had no input. She had to FaceTime her mother in another country just to get some input. She needed input. So hopefully, and actually I want to say hopefully she found the dress, but she did not leave with the dress. She left irritated because Brandon wouldn't stop looking at his phone.
Yeah.
So let's talk about Stephanie. I won't say Stephanie and Ryan anymore because Stephanie and Ryan are no more. So I'm going to refer to her as Stephanie and Harris now, because 48 hours after she arrived in Belize, her and Ryan broke up. And the very next day, she wastes absolutely no time having Harris get on a boat and a bus and, I don't know, maybe swimming in the ocean, whatever he did to get to her so she could have him stay with him for the rest of the trip. I mean, no mourning period, no time to herself, no reflection time. She went from one man in her bed literally the night before to another man in her bed the next night.
Listen, you know what's that song? I don't care how you get here, just get here if you can. That was Harris. Because when Harris was like, I took a boat, I did this, I got another car, I drove hours. I'm like, to get to Stephanie or to get to America? Because right. Stephanie's your ticket to America. But this is absolutely pathetic, okay? Watching this adult woman, middle-aged woman, pine after these young men in this way and really just belittle herself. Bad enough that she cheated on Ryan with his cousin Harris, all the while accusing Ryan of cheating when we have no proof that Ryan cheated, but we know that you did. Yeah. And having this fight with Ryan, and honestly, if she and Ryan broken up, that could be a fight. They fight all the time.
Yeah.
That could be a fight. That could have been a fight that they could have worked through, but no, she's making sure it's going to be a breakup, because if you just instantly call my cousin to come and lay up in the same bed that I was just laying in, you making sure that I don't speak to you again. It's just so tragic to watch this happen. I want to know where Stephanie's sense of self is. Where is her pride and where is her shame? Because I'm not saying that we should bring shame into female sexual behavior. I'm not talking about that piece, but the shame of walking around with your ex-fiance's cousin on your arm. And you know, this hits home for me. Because my mom passed away, and the minute my mom passed away, my dad was up with her cousin. So it hits home. And how hurtful that was to me and the rest of the family, that he wouldn't even grieve my mother, that days later, he was with her cousin. So I feel some kind of type of way. And again, like I said to my dad, is what I'm going to say to Stephanie. It's the optics. It just looks so bad.
And it makes me wonder if she wants Harris around, or she just wants to... Is it a revenge plot? Is it, well, if he hurt me, I'm going to hurt him worse by moving him? That's how I feel it is. And I don't feel like she loves Harris. I don't really feel like she loved Ryan. I just feel like she loved the idea of having someone that she can control, which I tell people all the time. Get a dog, get a cat. You can control them. You can train them. You can take them for walks. You can tell them to sit. You can tell them to get the hell off the couch. But you can't do that with a person. And I feel like Stephanie wants to do that with people. And she goes to countries where people tend to have less than her. And she thinks that because of that situation, she can control that person.
Yeah. To me, it's just it's pathetic. It's actually painful for me to watch. And for those of you who follow us on Twitter, I was on Twitter saying like it's actually painful. So I mean, Stephanie, sis, love yourself. I mean, if you and Ryan fall out, why can't you just say, you know what? I'm not going to waste my time in Belize, not by getting with his cousin, but I'm going to go to the spa. I'm going to have a drink. I'm going to lay on the beach. I'm going to just chill and zen. Why couldn't you have done that? Why did it have to be, I need a man to validate me and make me feel better about myself because this situation was bad for me? Why?
Exactly. And on that note, that's part 2. We have covered all of the drama that happened last night. I cannot wait till next week. I heard that next week Amira might be getting on a plane. I heard that on Twitter, so I don't know if that's true or not. So I don't know if we're even going to have her in America this season, but we're going to find out. There's only, I think, 7 episodes left, so we're going to find out really soon. So thank you guys for joining us for part 2. I'm George Mossey. This is Marshana, Dahlia, Spavento. I will put our Twitters and Instagrams at the bottom. Thank you so much for joining us. And we are doing this podcast weekly. And we will see you on Twitter to live tweet the show. Thank you guys so much.